Hey there everyone, welcome to another video. I hope you all are doing well. This video should be a fun one. I wanted to tackle the best Xbox 360 arcade games, and I know there's a lot of arcade games to choose from. I had to kind of limit it down to some of my favorites. They probably won't be your favorites, but I think that's the cool thing about channels like this, is that we get different opinions and things like that. Unfortunately, we are very close to a time when the 360 store is going to close down. It's the end of an era, truly, as it's closing down July 29th, 2024. Over 200 plus digital games will be unavailable to play anywhere else. So that's super unfortunate, but I can tell you one thing. I'm going to go over some fantastic games here. Not all of these games are still available. Unfortunately, sometimes games get delisted, and that is the case with a number of these, but still awesome if you have them, and maybe you can find a way to still play them. I don't know. We'll see, but let's get started. Should be a fun video.
Hi, everybody!
Hi, Dr. Nick!
Now, I'm starting off with one of my all-time favorite games, and that is DuckTales Remake. This was a game that came out towards the tail end of the Xbox 360 life. The good news is you can still buy this in a physical disc as well, but it was one of the funnest arcade games that you could play. A classic twist on the original NES game, which was a blast from the past to begin with. One of my all-time favorite cartoons when I was growing up was DuckTales, and so getting the chance to play as Scrooge McDuck in this game is absolutely fantastic. On the negative side, you will have to deal with a price point that sometimes can reach $25, $30 if you're looking for the physical game. I'm not 100% sure if this game is still listed. I believe it is, and one of the cool things about it being listed still is the fact that it is backwards compatible on Xbox One or Xbox Series X or S, so there's always tons of stuff that you can pick up and play. I highly recommend this game just for nostalgia purposes. If you were a fan, if you grew up like I did playing this game on the NES, this version is very faithful to that, the way that it plays, but it looks about a million times better. So absolutely one of the top games on the arcade that you can pick up, and highly recommended. Even in 2024, it's a blast to play. Next up, one of my favorites to play, especially if you're playing with friends, couch co-op or whatever, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game. Now, this one is so much fun because it really takes me back, and if any of you are old enough to actually have played in arcades when some of these games were out, it was an unbelievable feeling. The ambiance, the being able to kind of go around your peers and play video games. I mean, it was always cool to watch the older kids playing Mortal Kombat, and they knew the fatalities and things, but playing with my set of friends on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet, where it was 4 players, was absolutely a highlight and a thrill that I remember to this day. I believe it's a core memory that's kind of ingrained in me, and it's one of the best games that you can play. It's not a terribly long game, but you know, and I do believe that this has probably been delisted. You can play it, of course, on the Konami collection or whatever on current hardware, but just so much fun to play and so nostalgic. Love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Love the fact that the Turtles are kind of back. The things that I grew up with are back being popular again, and that is a cool thing to see. So hopefully you guys can play this game and enjoy it and understand why it's, you know, just one of those games that's a must play even in 2024. Next is one of my favorites, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Now, what's interesting about this game is, for being an indie game, being an arcade game, it's a game that I really kind of surprised me back when it came out on 360 and I played it. It was such a heartfelt game. It had such a great story and an interesting kind of idea behind it, where you controlled 2 brothers, one with the right joystick, one with the left, you know, kind of solve puzzles, go on this adventure, but it really had a deep story to it and was fantastic. Outside of that, they actually remade the game and had a remaster on the Xbox One and PS4, and recently on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 came out with a complete remake of the game, which I played through that as well. So I played through this game 3 times, if that tells you anything, on the 360, on my Xbox One, and also on my Xbox Series X just recently, because it's that good of a game. Such a fantastic game. It's also, if you're an achievement hunter, it's got an easy way and an easy path for the 1000 gamer score. Hard to miss, to be honest with you, but a very poignant story, great looking game even on the 360. If you haven't played it, Play it either on the 360 or if you have a newer console, play it there. You will not regret it. One of the best games you can play. NFL Blitz is next up on my list, and you know what? I miss these types of games. I miss the types of games where we had just, a sports game that was wacky and zany and over the top. We don't see stuff like this anymore, and it's super unfortunate that that's the case. At the end of the day, I feel like we miss a lot of what made the 360 era so great, and that's really unfortunate because, like I said, for many, myself included, I look at the Xbox 360 era as the greatest. It was so innovative. We had arcade games. Arcade actually kind of had a glow up during the life cycle of the Xbox 360. I mean, originally you just had like true arcade games like the Turtles arcade game, and then it came to mean stuff like this, NFL Blitz, which you can't really find these types of games anywhere. I'm not even sure that this game is playable in terms of being able to buy it, but it's still a lot of fun. It's not backwards compatible or anything like that, but that over-the-top action, that sports game, is something that I feel like we don't have anymore. So honestly, I love going back and playing NFL Blitz. I love going back and just having that fun time where you can like play as the old characters. It was kind of funny to go and see the old characters, the old players that are no longer there, and just that over the top kind of play. And I'm sure that if you're a sports fan, if you're an NFL fan, you'll probably like it too. Even in 2024, fun game. So I'm sure it's more than obvious, I'm a Simpsons fan, and so the Simpsons arcade game is definitely on here. And this is what I was talking about when I was speaking on more of the arcade games. And of course, this is no longer available. I understand that that's probably frustrating, and I will try to put together a list of at least some of the best games that are about to be delisted here soon. I've been working on that, but like I said, there's over 200 of them. But the Simpsons arcade game, much like the Ninja Turtles, was a fun game that you could play with 3 other friends, and we used to go to the arcade. We'd play that. It's an early game, but it had I think the voice acting, and realistically it's funny because if you look close, when at certain aspects of Marge, she was originally supposed to have like bunny ears in her hair, and I guess they kind of decided against that pretty soon after The Simpsons started. But in that video game, she has like the long rabbit ears, so it's kind of funny little detail to kind of notice. It's not an incredibly long game or anything like that. Like I said, it's a true arcade game that was in the arcade and was meant to be beat, but also meant to kind of have you waste your quarters and things like that. Still a fun game, a very good piece of nostalgia, and highly recommended even in 2024 if you can get your hands on it. Sticking with true arcade games, the XMen arcade game is another one that is probably going to frustrate you because you can't buy it anymore, but it is one of those games that was a true arcade game and came from the arcades. And if some of you remember this, because I know that this is still in like local arcades that I've played at, there's a couple of them around here, and they have this one where it was 2 full screens and allowed multiple players, I think 4 or maybe even 6, where each one could play a different character. Now this was one that had a lot of the teenagers at the time when I was like 12, 13, and I'd go with my friends and my brother, and we'd go. This one had like the older teenagers, the 16, 17-year-olds would usually be playing it, but all the fun is there, the nostalgia is there, the playing as different characters is there. It's one of those games that really kind of showed the way for like what co-op and what these type of arcade games can be. And I think, X-Men is kind of having a revival with the cartoon and things like that, which again was, absolutely one of my favorite arcades and cartoons back in the 90s. And I highly recommend it. I don't know how you can get a hold of this. I know that maybe it's possible to play an actual arcade port of this, thanks to that arcade company that does these types of games, but as far as I know, there's no other way, but certainly one of the best games that you could play on the Xbox 360 arcade, even in 2024. Next up is the incredible Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, and what I like about this game is the fact that it is such a hoot to play in and of itself. It is a game that came out very, very late in the life cycle of the Xbox 360, and it is a standalone expansion for Far Cry 3 and the 8th overall installment on the franchise as well. It's sort of a parody game of 80s action films, cartoons, video. It's all kind of mixed together. You play Cyborg Sergeant Rex Power Colt, and it's very similar to Far Cry 3 in the gameplay, but there are some things that have been a little bit changed up for the game itself. I like the color palette looks incredible. I think that they just really did a good job with how this game looks and how it plays. To me, having Michael Biehn as the main character, and he really kind of nailed that. I thought that they did a really good job with that. Overall, just the gameplay, the sound quality, everything, and it still holds up today. If you play it, you'll see what I'm talking about, how good this game looks, and just what an amazing job they've done with it. From top to bottom, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, incredible game. And like I said, because it came out so late in the 360 life cycle, it still holds up today. And this is the thing that I was talking about when you push arcade. Like this was considered arcade by the time the 360 life cycle came to an end versus some of the stuff I've shown you earlier on. So night and day difference, but still awesome. Coming in hot is Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. This is a game that really kind of initially started out as a handheld game for the PlayStation Vita as well as the Nintendo 3DS, and eventually came to consoles via the arcade. Again, like I said, variations from arcade games being like Frogger and actual arcade games like The Simpsons to full-on amazing titles like this. Now, I know this game was sort of looked at in a weird vein where, it was kind of a bad game at the time. I think that people have really kind of grown to enjoy it. To me, anyway, it really kind of captures the Arkham essence in 2.5D, which I feel like was something that's enough of a change to make this game worthwhile. And again, I think it looks incredible. The game really kind of has a flow combat system that is there in the other Arkham games, built for the ground up. Batman still moves he goes left to right, has the ability to do the foreground and the background. And again, the side missions, there's this whole thing, going through tight spaces. It's very much a Arkham game, but maybe a made-for-TV Arkham game would be a good way to kind of describe it. Sometimes the difficulties can jump and flex a little bit, but overall, this is a really good-looking game, a really fun Arkham game, and one that I highly suggest, even in 2024. Next up, we have Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation HD. Now, this was originally a PlayStation Vita exclusive for a while, and then eventually, actually, after the Xbox One and PS4 had already released, it came out in the arcade for the Xbox 360 and PS3. Like I said, night and day difference where they ended the arcade and where it started. And this was really cool because this was actually part of the release of Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered for Xbox One and PS4. So clearly, this is different than some of the other handheld Assassin's Creed games. They actually did a really good job of having a full open world game. Some gameplay mechanics as well. You could chain kill abilities. Playing as a new character, I thought was really cool. This was just a really fun game to kind of play through, and sort of follows along a little bit with Assassin's Creed 3, but overall a completely different experience, and one that I think they nailed from top to bottom. A must-play game in my opinion if you like the old Assassin's Creed style anyway, so absolutely recommended. And lastly, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, and this one might be a little bit controversial to put in this list, but I have to be honest, I love Sonic the Hedgehog much in the way that I love Batman Arkham Origins, and I always push that game when I do videos. I think Sonic the Hedgehog gets a bad rap. I absolutely love Sonic the Hedgehog, grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog. I understand why there's a little bit of discourse with this particular game, but the fact that we got a sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in the arcade on an Xbox 360 blows me away, right? So this game came out and was really, really good. It's a sequel to Sonic and Knuckles. It was a long, long wait, almost 20 years between games. Obviously going after Robotnik, or quote-unquote Eggman. There is a lot of stuff to love here. It's the 2D classic Sonic. He's back. It's a little bit slower maybe than some of the other ones. And there is an episode 2 as well that you can find. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. But this game is a lot of fun. it does have a lot of nostalgia, and I think people may be ready to accept it for what it is a little bit better nowadays, all these years later. 14 years later, I think it's easier to accept. But I enjoy this game immensely, and I think that it's a fun Sonic game. Hopefully you guys feel the same way as I do with it. It's a fun play even in 2024. Thank you for coming along with my list of best arcade games. I hope to maybe do another one of these, and I understand that there's going to be people that go, oh, how could you not put Castle Crashers in there? Or how could you not put, Kingdom of Keflings in there? And I agree, there's a lot of games that I could have put in here. I wanted to do somewhat of a unique list that I feel personally strongly about. I think a lot of lists that get put on YouTube are a lot of the same thing, and so I like to change mine up and just, I think we all have different tastes and opinions, and let's be respectful. Now, if you do enjoy my content, please leave a like on the video. It helps it to be seen. And please subscribe, because I think that helps tremendously as well. When you're a small content creator, it takes me a long time to put together these videos. It takes me almost a week. I have a job, a family, and so it really is appreciative when you guys leave comments, like the videos, and subscribe. I think it's super important to save the history of video games, and a lot of these arcade games are already lost forever or will be soon. And so hopefully this brings a little bit of awareness to some games that maybe you haven't tried before, maybe you haven't played in a long time, and now you'll go back and play them again. So hopefully I can bring you a little bit of joy with my videos. I hope you guys all have a great day. Remember to have fun gaming. That's what it's all about, and I'll catch you next time.